My name is Margaret Chen, and I'm about to tell you about the day my own son locked me out of my house. The home I'd owned for 30 years. The home I'd paid for with my own sweat and tears. But before I get to that moment, standing in the rain with my suitcase watching my daughter-in-law's cold smile through the window, I need to tell you how we got there. Because betrayal doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in slowly, disguised as concern, wrapped in the language of love. I'm 68 years old. My hair's gone silver now, though I remember when it was as black as midnight. My hands aren't as steady as they used to be, but they're strong enough. Strong enough to tend my roses. Strong enough to hold a pen. Strong enough, as it turned out, to fight back when my own family tried to steal everything from me. Let me take you back 3 months before that rainy afternoon. Back to when I still believed my son David was the good man I'd raised him to be. It was a Tuesday morning in early spring when David called. I was in my garden, kneeling in the dirt with my hands deep in the soil, planting petunias along the path my late husband Robert had laid 20 years ago. Every stone in that path I remembered him placing. Every corner of that house held him somehow, even 15 years after he'd passed. Mom. David's voice came through the phone and I could hear something in it. Not quite nervousness. Not quite guilt. But something. David, sweetheart. How are you? I brushed the dirt off my hands and sat back on my heels, squinting up at the morning sun. Good. Listen, Mom, I wanted to ask you something. Jessica and our apartment lease is ending next month and we're between places right now. Would it be okay if we stayed with you? Just temporarily. Maybe a month or 2 while we find something. My heart swelled. My son coming home. Even temporarily. Even with her. Jessica. My daughter-in-law of 3 years. I'd tried so hard to love her, to welcome her into our family. But there was something about Jessica Bradford, Jessica Chen now, that always felt like glass. Beautiful, polished, but cold to the touch. She came from money, the kind of old money that makes people believe they're better than others just by birthright. When David brought her home that first time, I saw how she looked at my modest house, at my simple furniture, at me in my grocery store clothes. Her smile never quite reached her eyes. But she was David's choice. And I'd raised my son to follow his heart. Of course, I told him that morning, still kneeling in my garden. Stay as long as you need. Family helps family. I should have heard the relief in his voice. Should have wondered why he sounded so grateful, almost desperate. But I was just happy to have my son coming home. 2 weeks later they moved in. Not with a few suitcases like I'd expected, but with a moving truck. Box after box of designer furniture, expensive electronics. More clothes than I'd owned in my entire life. Jessica directed the movers like a general commanding troops, pointing to my living room, my dining room, telling them where to put things as if she'd lived here for years. Jessica, I said gently, watching a mover carry in a massive flat-screen television, where should we put this? The living room is all ready. We'll rearrange, she said without looking at me. Your furniture is so outdated anyway, Margaret. You'll love what we've brought. Very modern. Modern. That became her favorite word. My wallpaper wasn't modern. My kitchen wasn't modern. My entire life apparently wasn't modern enough for Jessica Chen. That first week I tried to make them comfortable. I cooked David's favorite meals, the dumplings I'd learned from my mother, the beef stew he'd loved as a child. I cleared space in the closets, moved my things aside to make room for theirs. I wanted them to feel at home. Jessica had other plans. Margaret, she said on the 3rd day, running her finger along my dining room wallpaper with visible distaste. This wallpaper is so dated. When was this put up? The 70s. 1986, I said quietly. Robert and I chose it together. It was. It's got to go, she interrupted. David, don't you think? We can't live with this. David looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot like he used to do as a boy when he knew he should speak up but didn't want to. I mean, it's Mom's house, Jess. Maybe we should make it livable, Jessica finished for him. Then she turned to me with that smile, that cold, beautiful smile. You don't mind, do you, Margaret? We're family now. And honestly, you've let this place go for too long. Do you really need all this space just for yourself? There was the first real strike. Do you really need all this space just for yourself? I felt something twist in my chest, but I swallowed it down. I've managed just fine, I said. Have you? Jessica tilted her head, her eyes scanning me like I was a problem she was calculating. Because David works so hard, Margaret. He's a cardiologist. He saves lives every day. Doesn't he deserve to live somewhere nice? Somewhere that reflects his success. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Your house isn't nice enough for my son. Your house isn't good enough. I wanted to remind her that David had grown up in this house. That every room held memories of his childhood. His first steps in the hallway, his birthday parties in the backyard, late nights studying at the kitchen table for medical school exams while I made him coffee and brought him snacks between my double shifts at the hospital. I wanted to remind her that I'd worked 2 jobs for 15 years after Robert died, that every mortgage payment had come from my own exhausted hands, that I'd sacrificed everything so David could become the successful doctor he was. But I said nothing. I just nodded and walked away. That's how it started. Small comments. Little criticisms. Each one on its own seemed minor, almost trivial. But together they began to form a picture. By the second week, Jessica started redecorating. I came home from the grocery store one afternoon to find painters in my living room. The soft cream walls I'd chosen were being covered in a harsh gray that made the whole room feel cold. Surprise! Jessica announced, spreading her arms wide. We're updating the space. You're going to love it. I didn't agree to this, I said, my bags of groceries still in my hands. Oh, Margaret, don't be difficult. It's just paint. Besides, David and I are paying for it. Consider it our thank you gift for letting us stay. But I hadn't asked for a gift. I'd asked for nothing except to keep my home the way I wanted it. I found David in what used to be Robert's study, where I'd kept everything exactly as my husband had left it. His books on the shelves, his reading chair by the window, his glasses still on the desk like he might come back any moment and need them. Jessica was standing in the middle of the room with a tablet, making notes. What's going on? I asked. David couldn't meet my eyes. Mom, Jessica thinks this room is too cluttered. It's just sitting here unused and we could really use a home office. It's not unused, I said, my voice shaking. It's your father's study. Dad's been gone 15 years, David said, and there was something in his tone. Not his tone. Jessica's words in his mouth. You can't live in the past forever. Jessica walked over and put her hand on my shoulder and I felt myself flinch. We'll pack everything up carefully, she said in that syrupy voice she used when she wanted something. Put it in the garage. You can go through it whenever you want. But David needs a proper workspace, Margaret. Surely you understand that. What could I say? That I came to this room sometimes just to sit in Robert's chair and feel close to him? That I still smelled his cologne on his jackets hanging in the closet? That this room was sacred ground, the last piece of my husband I had left? I looked at David, waiting for him to defend me, to remember to be the son I'd raised. But he was looking at his phone, already disengaged, already letting Jessica make the decisions. Fine, I whispered. But I'll pack it myself. I spent that entire night in Robert's study, carefully wrapping each book, folding each piece of clothing, crying into shirts that no longer smelled like him but that I couldn't bear to throw away. Jessica checked on me once, saw me crying and actually rolled her eyes before walking away. By the third week, my family photos started disappearing from the walls. The pictures of David as a baby, of Robert and me on our wedding day, of my parents who'd come to this country with nothing and built a life through sheer determination. Gone. Replaced with abstract art Jessica had ordered online. It's more sophisticated, she explained when I asked. All those old photos make the house look like a museum. My life. My history. A museum. I started to notice other things too. Jessica would change the Wi-Fi password and forget to tell me. Oh, was I supposed to share that? Sorry, it's just for security. My mail would get misplaced. Important letters from the bank, from my doctor, suddenly nowhere to be found. I must have thought it was junk mail, Jessica would say with a shrug. She began scheduling dinner parties when I was out, running errands or visiting my friend Rose. I'd come home to find my house full of strangers, people I'd never met, laughing and drinking wine in my living room. When I appeared in the doorway with my grocery bags, Jessica would say, "Oh, Margaret, you're back early. Everyone, this is David's mother. She's been spending more time away lately. I think she's struggling with memory issues." Memory issues. I was 68, not 88. My mind was sharp as ever. But Jessica said it so sweetly, with such concern in her voice, that people would look at me with pity, like I was already half gone. I began to understand. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't just a few months between apartments. Jessica was taking over my house and she was erasing me in the process. One night I couldn't sleep. I came downstairs for some water and heard voices in the living room. Jessica was on the phone and she didn't know I was there. "The old bat is finally breaking," she said, and I froze on the stairs. "Give it 2 more weeks and she'll be ready to sign whatever we put in front of her." A woman's voice on the other end. Jessica's sister, I realized. "What if she doesn't agree to sign? Then we'll have her declared incompetent," Jessica said, laughing softly. "David's a doctor. His testimony carries weight. We'll tell the court she's lost her faculties, that she's a danger to herself. It's not that hard." My hand gripped the banister so hard my knuckles went white. "That's cold, Jess," her sister said, but she was laughing too. "That house is worth $850,000, Jessica said, and I could hear the greed in her voice like honey turned rotten. "I'm not letting some old woman hoard it when we could be living our best life. David deserves better than this. I deserve better than this." I stood there in the darkness, listening to my daughter-in-law plot to steal my home, and something inside me shifted. Hardened. I went back upstairs quietly, but I didn't sleep. I lay in my bed, the bed I'd shared with Robert, the bed where I'd rocked baby David when he had nightmares, the bed that was in my house, my home, and I made a decision. If Jessica wanted a war, I'd give her one. But I'd fight smart. The next morning I called my old friend Rose. Rose and I had known each other for 40 years. She'd been my rock after Robert died, the friend who'd helped me navigate widowhood and single parenthood. I trusted her with my life. "Rose," I said when she answered, "I need your help. I think my son is going to betray me." We met at a cafe that afternoon, far from my house where Jessica couldn't see us. I told Rose everything. The comments, the redecorating, the conversation I'd overheard. I showed her the credit card statements I'd been checking, the ones that showed thousands of dollars in charges I'd never authorized. Furniture. Designer clothes. Expensive dinners. Jessica had been using my credit card like it was her own. Rose reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Maggie," she said, using the nickname only my oldest friends knew, "you need to protect yourself. Document everything." "Everything. Everything," Rose confirmed. "Keep a journal. Record conversations if you can. Take pictures. Get copies of all your important documents and bring them to my house for safekeeping. Because if Jessica is planning what you think she's planning, you need evidence." So that's what I did. I became a spy in my own home. I bought a small camera online and hid it in the living room behind a picture frame. I started keeping my phone in my pocket all the time, recording conversations. I bought a journal and every night, locked in my bedroom, I wrote down everything that happened. Every comment Jessica made. Every time David chose her over me. Every dollar that disappeared from my account. I made copies of everything. My deed to the house, my will, my financial records. Rose kept them in a safe in her basement. I opened a new bank account Jessica didn't know about and started transferring money there, little by little, protecting what I could. And I watched. I waited. I let them think I was weak. Because I was learning something important. Jessica was getting careless. Arrogant. She thought she'd already won. One evening about 6 weeks after they'd moved in, I was in my room when I heard Jessica and David arguing downstairs. I pressed my ear to the air vent, and their voices floated up clear as day. "We need to speed this up," Jessica was saying. "I'm tired of pretending to be nice to her. Jess, she's my mother." "She's a obstacle," Jessica snapped. "And she's sitting on almost $1 million in real estate that should be ours. Do you know what we could do with that money? The life we could have." "I don't know if I can." "Can what? Grow up? Take what's owed to you? David, you are a successful cardiologist. You save lives. You should be living in a mansion, not cramming into your mother's dated little house, watching her hoard space like some old dragon sitting on gold." There was a long silence. Then David spoke and his voice was quieter. Weaker. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to be a man," Jessica said. "I want you to stop letting your mother guilt trip you. She's had her life. Now it's time for ours." I recorded every word. The next day while they were both out, I went through David's briefcase. I know I shouldn't have. I know it was an invasion of privacy. But something told me I needed to see what they were planning. What I found made my blood run cold. Power of attorney documents. With my signature on them. Except I'd never signed them. I'd never even seen them before. They'd forged my signature. There were other documents too. Information about assisted living facilities. A draft of a real estate listing for my house, complete with photos they'd taken without my knowledge. They were planning to sell my home out from under me. I photographed everything with shaking hands. Then I put it all back exactly as I'd found it. That evening I called a lawyer. Evelyn Torres came highly recommended. Sharp, experienced, and known for taking elder abuse cases seriously. We met at her office the next day. I showed her everything. The recordings. The photographs. My journal. The forged documents. Evelyn listened to it all, her face growing harder with each piece of evidence. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and looked at me with respect. "Mrs. Chen," she said, "what they're doing is illegal on multiple levels. Fraud, forgery, financial exploitation, elder abuse. We have enough here to prosecute." "I don't want to destroy my son," I said, and my voice cracked. "I want to save him from her." Evelyn's expression softened. "Then we'll be strategic. But you need to understand, this is going to get worse before it gets better. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about David as a little boy, bringing me dandelions from the yard, telling me they were wishes waiting to happen. I thought about the man he'd become, so lost in Jessica's manipulation that he'd forgotten who raised him. I thought about Robert, who'd loved David so much, who'd worked himself into an early grave to give our son a better life. "I'm prepared," I said. Evelyn leaned forward. "Good. Because here's what we're going to do." She laid out a plan. We would let them continue. Let them think they were winning. Let them make mistakes, gather more evidence. Let their arrogance expose them fully. And then when the moment was right, we'd strike back with everything we had. "The law is on your side," Evelyn said. "But we need to build an airtight case. Can you hold on a little longer?" I nodded. I could hold on. I'd held on through worse. Through losing Robert. Through raising a child alone. Through working 2 jobs until my hands bled and my feet screamed. I could hold on through this. But it was hard. God, it was hard. Because every day I watched my son slip further away. Every day Jessica's mask slipped a little more, revealing the cruelty underneath. And every day I had to pretend I didn't notice. Had to play the confused old woman Jessica wanted me to be. The incident that Jessica called the fall happened about 8 weeks in. I'd made tea that afternoon. Chamomile, my favorite. Jessica made it for me actually, which should have been my first warning. He was never kind without reason. I drank the tea. 20 minutes later I felt strange. Dizzy. Disconnected. The world tilted sideways and I remember trying to grab the banister, trying to stay upright, but my legs wouldn't work. I woke up in the hospital. David was there, looking worried but not quite worried enough. Jessica stood behind him, her face arranged in concern, but her eyes were cold. Calculating. "Mom," David said, taking my hand, "you fell. Down the stairs. Do you remember?" I tried to focus. My thoughts were swimming through mud. I don't. The doctor came in. Asked me questions. "Do you know what day it is? Do you know where you are? Do you remember what happened?" I couldn't answer clearly. Whatever Jessica had put in my tea was still clouding my mind, making me seem exactly how she wanted me to seem. Confused, frail, incompetent. "See," Jessica said to David, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "This is what I've been telling you. She's not safe alone. What if she'd been by herself? She could have died." I wanted to scream that I wasn't alone, that Jessica had been there, that this was no accident. But my tongue felt thick, my thoughts scattered. They kept me overnight for observation. When my head finally cleared around midnight, I realized what had happened. Jessica had drugged me. Created a scenario that made me look unstable. And now she'd use it as evidence that I couldn't care for myself. I recorded a voice memo on my phone, documenting everything I remembered while it was fresh. My shaking hands. Jessica making the tea. The sudden onset of dizziness. I sent it to Rose just in case. When I got home the next day, Jessica was all concern. "Margaret, we've been so worried. We think it's time to talk about your living situation." "My living situation?" I repeated. David stepped forward, unable to meet my eyes. "Mom, maybe you should consider. There are some really nice facilities. Communities for seniors. Where you'd have help if you needed it. Where you'd be safe. You want to put me in a home." It wasn't a question. Not a home. Jessica said quickly. A community. With activities and medical staff. It would be better for you. Better for me, I said slowly. Or better for you? Jessica's mask slipped for just a second. Let's not be dramatic, Margaret. I looked at my son. My boy. The child I'd raised to be good and kind and just. David, look at me. He did finally, and I saw the guilt there. The weakness. The man he'd become instead of the man I'd tried to raise. Is this what you want? I asked him. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Then, Mom, you're getting older. Jessica and we think this is what's best. It's best. Not what I wanted. What they thought was best. I'm 68 years old, I said, my voice steady despite the fury building inside me. My mind is sharp. I take care of this house just fine. I take care of myself just fine. But the fall, David started, was no accident, I said, staring directly at Jessica. Her eyes widened for just a moment before she recovered. Margaret, you're confused. You fell. I found you at the bottom of the stairs. It was terrifying. I had no proof. Not yet. So I swallowed the accusation and said simply, I'm not going anywhere. This is my house. Jessica's smile turned icy. We'll see about that. Over the next 2 weeks, the pressure intensified. Jessica brought home brochures for senior living communities. Nice name for expensive warehouses where old people go to be forgotten. She'd leave them on my nightstand on the kitchen counter in the bathroom where I'd see them. Just look at them, she'd say. They have gardens. Activities. You'd make new friends. I didn't want new friends. I wanted my home. I wanted my life. I wanted my son back. But David was fully under her spell now. He'd stopped meeting my eyes altogether. Stopped calling me unless Jessica was there listening. Stopped being my son in any way that mattered. Then one night I overheard them in their bedroom. I was in the hallway about to knock and say goodnight. Old habits die hard, when I heard Jessica's voice. We changed the locks this weekend while she's at Rose's. My hand froze inches from the door. David's voice uncertain, but Mom will come back. And we'll tell her she doesn't live here anymore, Jessica said matter-of-factly. What's she going to do? She has no proof this is her house if we have all the documents. This feels wrong. What feels wrong is watching your mother selfishly hoard a house while we're cramped. You deserve this, David. We deserve this. She's had her time. Now it's ours. Silence. Then David, so quiet I almost didn't hear. Okay. My son had just agreed to lock me out of my own home. I stood in that hallway, my heart shattering into pieces I wasn't sure I could ever put back together. This was really happening. My son, my baby boy, the child I'd sacrificed everything for, was going to throw me out like garbage. I walked back to my room on numb legs. Sat on my bed. Stared at the walls Robert and I had painted together 30 years ago. And then I called Evelyn. They're going to lock me out this weekend, I told her, my voice surprisingly steady. I'm supposed to visit Rose on Saturday. That's when they're planning it. Perfect, Evelyn said. Perfect. Margaret, this gives us everything we need. Illegal eviction, elder abuse in action, fraud. When they lock you out, they're handing us the case on a silver platter. Can you handle it? Can you go through with it? Could I let my son throw me out of my own house? Could I stand in the rain and let him break my heart completely? I can handle it, I said. What do I need to do? Evelyn laid out the plan. I would go to Rose's as planned. Let them change the locks. When I came home and couldn't get in, I'd document everything. Take photos, record video, get witnesses. Then we'd file for an emergency hearing. It's going to hurt, Evelyn warned me. When you're standing outside your own house and your son won't let you in, it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. I know, I said. But I have to see it through. He needs to understand what he's doing. What she's turned him into. That Friday night I packed a small suitcase. Just enough clothes for a few days at Rose's house. I moved through my home, touching things, memorizing them. This might be the last time I walked through these rooms as someone who belonged here. I went into Robert's study, or what used to be Robert's study, now converted to David's cold, modern office. I stood where Robert's chair had been, where I'd watched him read on countless evenings, where he'd held me after hard days and promised me everything would be okay. I hope I'm doing the right thing, I whispered to him. I hope you'd understand. Saturday morning came bright and clear. Cruel weather for such a dark day. I said goodbye to David and Jessica at breakfast. Have fun at Rose's, Jessica said with that smile. That knowing smile. David didn't say anything. Didn't look at me. Just nodded and went back to his phone. I wanted to memorize his face. Wanted to remember the last moment before everything broke. But he wouldn't even give me that. I drove to Rose's house. We sat at her kitchen table and I shook like a leaf. I don't know if I can do this, I said. Rose held my hands. Yes, you can. You're the strongest woman I know, Maggie. You've survived everything life has thrown at you. You'll survive this too. But he's my son. I know, honey. I know. We waited. Evelyn called to check in. The locksmith she'd hired was parked down the street from my house, watching, ready to document everything. We had neighbors on alert, ready to witness. Everything was in place. At 4 o'clock I drove back home. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. The whole drive I kept hoping I was wrong. Hoping David would have changed his mind. Hoping my son would choose me. I pulled into my driveway. Everything looked normal. My roses blooming. My mailbox. My house. I walked up to the front door. Put my key in the lock. It didn't turn. I tried again. And again. My hands shaking harder now, my breath coming faster. They'd really done it. I knocked on the door. Pounded on it. David. I called. David, my key doesn't work. The door opened, but only a crack. The chain was on. Jessica's face appeared in the gap and her smile was pure venom. My key doesn't work, I said, hating how small my voice sounded. That's because you don't live here anymore, Margaret, Jessica said, each word like a slap. This is my house. My voice rose. Let me in. Was your house, Jessica corrected. We're taking care of it now. You should go to that facility we mentioned. I hear they have an opening. David. I screamed past her. David, please. He appeared behind Jessica and for a moment, one brief shining moment, I thought he might do the right thing. Might remember who he was. Might remember the mother who'd given him everything. But then he spoke. Mom, this is for the best. You can't take care of yourself anymore. I'm perfectly capable. Tears were streaming down my face now and I didn't care. Let me in. This is my home. We'll have your things sent to you, Jessica said. Goodbye, Margaret. The door slammed shut. I stood there on my own porch, staring at my own front door, locked out of my own life. The rain started then. Of course it did. Like even the weather was mocking me. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, came rushing over from across the street. Margaret? What's happening? They locked me out, I said, and my voice broke completely. My own son locked me out. Mrs. Patterson's face filled with horror. That's awful. Come to my house, dear. Come on. But I shook my head. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands. Took pictures of my key not working. Took video of the closed door. Of my suitcase on the porch. Of me standing in the rain. Then I made a call. It's done, I said when Evelyn answered. They took the bait. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to know, what would you do in my situation? If your own child locked you out of your home, would you fight back or walk away? Let me know in the comments below because your answer might surprise you. I looked back at my house one more time. The house I'd lived in for 30 years. The house where I'd raised my son, buried my husband's memory, built my entire life. And then I walked away. I spent that night at Rose's house, lying awake, staring at the ceiling. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw David's face in that doorway. Saw the weakness there. The guilt he couldn't quite hide. But not enough guilt to stop him. Never enough to choose me over her. Rose kept checking on me. Do you want tea? Something to eat? I shook my head. I didn't want anything except to wake up from this nightmare. But it wasn't a nightmare. It was real. My son had betrayed me in the worst way possible. And now I had to decide, did I really want to go through with this? Did I really want to take him to court? Expose him? Potentially destroy his career and his life? Around midnight, Rose came in and sat on the edge of my bed. Maggie, she said softly, I know you're questioning everything right now. But I need you to remember something. You didn't do this to him. He did this to himself. You're not attacking him. You're defending yourself. There's a difference. He's my son, I whispered. And you're his mother. The mother who sacrificed everything. Who worked until her hands bled. who gave up her own dreams so he could have his. And this is how he repays you. Rose's voice was fierce. No, honey. You fight back. Not for revenge. For justice. For dignity. Because if you don't, Jessica wins. And more importantly, David never learns. He'll think he can treat people like this, treat you like this, and get away with it. He was right. I knew she was right. The next morning, Evelyn filed an emergency motion with the court. Within 48 hours we had a hearing scheduled. I wish I could tell you that in those days between the lockout and the hearing, David reached out. Called me. Checked if I was okay. Showed even a shred of the boy I'd raised. But he didn't. Radio silence. Like I'd never existed. Jessica, on the other hand, was busy. I heard from Mrs. Patterson that she was already redecorating again. Throwing out more of my things. Acting like the house was hers, like she'd won. She had no idea what was coming. The morning of the hearing I dressed carefully. Not in my usual simple clothes, but in the good dress I'd bought for David's medical school graduation. I wanted to look like what I was. A woman who'd built a life through hard work and dignity. Not the confused, feeble old woman Jessica wanted everyone to think I was. Evelyn met me at the courthouse. Ready? She asked. I nodded. I wasn't ready. But I was going to do it anyway. We walked into that courtroom and there they were. David and Jessica with their lawyer. A man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd never lost a case in his life and didn't plan to start today. David looked terrible. Exhausted. Guilty. But when he saw me, he quickly looked away. Jessica looked perfect as always. Polished and beautiful and cold as ice. Judge Patricia Morrison entered. A stern black woman in her 50s who, I would learn, had a reputation for taking elder abuse seriously. She'd grown up watching her own grandmother fight off relatives trying to take advantage of her. This was personal for her. The hearing began. Their lawyer spoke first, painting me as a confused elderly woman who couldn't manage her own affairs. Who'd left the stove on. Who'd fallen down the stairs. Who clearly needed help but was too stubborn to accept it. My clients acted out of love and concern, he said smoothly. They only want what's best for Mrs. Chen, even if she can't see it herself. Then it was our turn. Evelyn stood up, and when she spoke, her voice was sharp as a blade. Your Honor, this isn't a story of concerned family members. This is a story of calculated fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. And we have evidence to prove every word. She presented it all. The recordings of Jessica on the phone talking about the old bat, and the house worth $850,000. The forged power of attorney documents. The credit card statements showing $23,000 in unauthorized charges. The photos of the house being redecorated without my permission, my possessions being thrown away. I watched David's face as each piece of evidence came out. Watched him realize how much I'd known. How much I'd documented. How I'd been fighting back all along while they thought I was helpless. Then Evelyn played the recording from the night before the lockout. Jessica's voice, clear as day. We changed the locks this weekend while she's at Rose's. David's voice, but Mom will come back. Jessica, and we'll tell her she doesn't live here anymore. The courtroom was completely silent. Jessica was called to the stand. Evelyn tore her apart piece by piece. Mrs. Chen, did you charge $23,000 to Margaret Chen? Chen's credit card without her explicit written permission. Jessica shifted in her seat. Those were for improvements to the house. That wasn't the question. Did you have her explicit written permission? Well, no, but... Yes or no, Mrs. Chen? Jessica's jaw tightened. No. Did you change the locks on Margaret Chen's house without her knowledge or consent? For her safety. Yes or no? Yes. Did you prevent Margaret Chen from entering her own home, a home she has owned for 30 years, a home with her name alone on the deed? Jessica's lawyer stood up. Objection, Your Honor. Leading. Overruled, Judge Morrison said coldly. Answer the question, Mrs. Chen. Jessica looked at her lawyer, then back at Evelyn. Yes. But she wasn't capable of living alone anymore. Do you have any medical documentation supporting that claim? Any diagnosis from a licensed physician stating that Margaret Chen was incapable of independent living? Silence. Mrs. Chen? Do you have any medical evidence? David's a doctor, Jessica said. He could see. But he didn't document it, did he? No formal evaluation. No diagnosis. No medical records at all. Jessica's face was turning red. She didn't need a formal diagnosis for us to see she was struggling. Evelyn walked over to the evidence table and picked up a piece of paper. Your Honor, I'd like to submit the results of a comprehensive medical evaluation performed on Margaret Chen just last week by Dr. Patricia Yu, a geriatric specialist. Dr. Yu found Mrs. Chen to be in excellent mental health, with no signs of dementia, cognitive decline, or any condition that would impair her ability to live independently. She handed the document to the judge, then turned back to Jessica. So let me ask you again, Mrs. Chen. What evidence did you have that Margaret needed to be removed from her home? Jessica's composure was cracking. She left the stove on. Once. Is that your claim? That she left the stove on once while she was actively cooking. She fell down the stairs. After drinking tea you made for her. Tea that, based on her medical records from that evening, contained traces of a sedative. Would you like to explain that? Jessica's eyes went wide. I don't know what you're talking about. The hospital ran a toxicology screen, Mrs. Chen. Standard procedure for unexplained falls. Margaret Chen had Ambien in her system. She doesn't have a prescription for Ambien. But you do, don't you? The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Morrison slammed her gavel. Jessica was shaking now, her perfect mask completely shattered. I was trying to help her sleep. She was stressed. You drugged her without her knowledge or consent, then used her resulting confusion as evidence that she was incompetent. Is that your definition of help? Jessica's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, my client. Sit down, counselor, Judge Morrison said, her voice like ice. I want to hear this. Evelyn wasn't done. She walked back to the evidence table and pulled up her phone, connecting it to the courtroom's audio system. Your Honor, I'd like to play one more recording. This is from a conversation Mrs. Jessica Chen had with her sister approximately 6 weeks before the lockout. Jessica's face went white. No, wait. The recording played. Jessica's voice filled the courtroom. The old bat is finally breaking. Give it 2 more weeks. Her sister, what if she doesn't agree to sign? Jessica, then we'll have her declared incompetent. David's a doctor. His word carries weight. Sister, that's cold, Jess. Jessica, that house is worth $850,000. I'm not letting some old woman hoard it when we could be living our best life. When it ended, the silence in the courtroom was deafening. Judge Morrison looked at Jessica with pure disgust. Mrs. Chen, do you have anything to say? Jessica opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her lawyer whispered something to her, but she shook her head. And then something snapped. Yes. Jessica stood up, her voice rising. Yes, I said all of that. Because it's true. She doesn't deserve that house. She's old, she's alone, what does she need all that space for? Her lawyer grabbed her arm. Mrs. Chen, please sit down. But Jessica was spiraling now, all her rage and entitlement pouring out. Do you know how hard David works? How much he's accomplished? He's a cardiologist. He saves lives every single day. And he has to live in that tiny, dated house with that woman hovering over him like some ghost from the past. Jessica, stop, her lawyer hissed. No. I'm tired of pretending. That house is worth almost $1 million. She's just hoarding it, being selfish. We deserved it. We were supposed to get it when she died, but she's taking forever. She stopped, realizing what she'd just said. The entire courtroom heard it. We were supposed to get it when she died, but she's taking forever. She just admitted she was waiting for me to die. Judge Morrison's face was stone. Sit down, Mrs. Chen. Now. Jessica collapsed into her chair and I saw real fear in her eyes for the first time. She'd just destroyed herself in open court. Then it was David's turn to testify. My son walked to the stand like a man heading to the gallows. He couldn't look at me. Not once. Evelyn was gentler with him than she'd been with Jessica, but not by much. Dr. Chen, did you love your mother? David's voice was barely a whisper. Of course. Then why did you lock her out of her own home? He finally looked up and I saw tears in his eyes. Jessica said it was for the best. That mom couldn't take care of herself anymore. Did you believe that? Long pause. I wanted to believe it. That's not what I asked. Did you actually believe your mother was incapable of living independently? David's hands were shaking. No, I knew she was fine. Jessica kept saying, and I was tired of fighting, and I thought maybe it would be easier. Easier to throw your mother out than to stand up to your wife? Objection. Jessica's lawyer shouted. Withdrawn, Evelyn said. Dr. Chen, did you know about the forged power of attorney documents? No. I swear I didn't know about those. Did you know your wife was stealing from your mother's credit cards? David looked at Jessica, betrayal written all over his face. No. She told me she was using our money for the renovations. Did you know she drugged your mother before the fall? What? No. God, no. David turned to Jessica, horror dawning. Jess, you didn't. Jessica wouldn't look at him. Evelyn pressed on. Dr. Chen, your mother sacrificed everything for you. She worked 2 jobs to put you through medical school. She raised you alone after your father died. She gave you every opportunity. How do you feel about repaying her by throwing her into the rain and taking her home? David broke down completely. I feel like a monster, he sobbed. I feel like I've destroyed everything good my mother ever built. I knew it was wrong. Every single day I knew it was wrong. But I was weak. I chose comfort over conscience. I chose my marriage over my mother. And I'll never forgive myself for it. He turned to look at me for the first time since this all began. His face was streaked with tears, twisted with anguish. Mom, he said, his voice breaking. Mom, I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. What I did was unforgivable. But I'm so sorry. I sat there looking at my son crying on the witness stand, and my heart was breaking all over again. Because I could see him now, really see him. The man who'd betrayed me, yes. But also the boy I'd raised, buried somewhere under all that weakness and guilt. I didn't say anything. I just looked at him until he had to turn away. Judge Morrison let the silence hang for a moment, then spoke. I've presided over many cases in my career. Cases of fraud, theft, abuse. But this. She shook her head. Mrs. Jessica Chen, you have committed multiple felonies. Fraud, forgery, financial exploitation of an elderly person, and elder abuse. Dr. Chen, while you may not have initiated this scheme, your complicity is inexcusable. You had a duty to protect your mother, and you betrayed that duty in the worst possible way. She looked at me then, and her expression softened just slightly. Mrs. Margaret Chen, I am deeply sorry for what you've endured. No parent should have to go through this. No person should have to go through this. Then her voice turned hard again. Here is my ruling. The house at 247 Maple Street is and has always been the sole property of Margaret Chen. Mrs. Jessica Chen and Dr. David Chen have 48 hours to vacate the premises and remove only their personal belongings. All of Mrs. Margaret Chen's possessions are to be left untouched. Jessica made a sound like a wounded animal. Furthermore, I am issuing a restraining order. Neither of you is to contact Margaret Chen or come within 500 feet of her or her property without her explicit written permission. Your Honor, Jessica's lawyer started. I'm not finished. I am referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution. Mrs. Jessica Chen, you can expect charges for fraud, forgery, theft, and elder abuse. Those charges carry significant prison time. Jessica burst into tears. Real tears this time, not the calculated ones she'd used to manipulate David. This isn't fair. We were trying to help. Judge Morrison's eyes flashed. Help? You drugged her. Forged documents in her name. Stole her money. Threw her out of her own home. And then you stood in my courtroom and said you were waiting for her to die. That's not help, Mrs. Chen. That's evil. She slammed her gavel. We're adjourned. Mrs. Margaret Chen, your home is yours again. No one can take it from you. As the courtroom emptied, David tried to approach me. Mom. Don't, I said quietly. Not now. Not yet. He stopped, nodding, tears still streaming down his face. I'm filing for divorce, he said. I should have done it months ago. I should have protected you. Yes, I agreed. You should have. Will you ever be able to forgive me? I looked at my son, at the stranger he'd become, at the man who'd thrown me into the rain, at the boy I'd raised who was somewhere underneath all that pain and guilt. I don't know, I said honestly. Ask me again in a year. Maybe 2. Maybe 10. But not today. Jessica was being led away by her lawyer, still crying, still protesting. She shot me a look of pure hatred. You'll regret this, old woman. Mrs. Chen, her lawyer snapped. Stop talking. Judge Morrison called from the bench. Mrs. Jessica Chen, if you threaten the plaintiff one more time, I'll have you arrested for contempt right now. Try me. Jessica finally shut up. 2 days later, I stood on my front porch as a police officer supervised David and Jessica packing their things. They'd filled a moving truck with all their expensive furniture, their designer clothes, all the things that had mattered so much to Jessica. Jessica wouldn't look at me. She stormed in and out, throwing things into boxes, muttering under her breath. The officer had to warn her twice to calm down. David moved slowly, carefully. I watched him pack up his office, the office that used to be Robert's study. Before he left, he came to me holding a box. Mom, I found these in the garage. They're things from Dad's study. I'm sorry we moved them. I'm sorry for everything. He set the box down at my feet and turned to go. David, I called. He stopped, turned back. Thank you, I said. Just that. Nothing more. His face crumpled, but he nodded and walked away. When the moving truck finally pulled away, taking Jessica and David and all their things with it, the police officer turned to me. You okay, ma'am? I looked at my house. My home. The place I'd built with Robert, raised David in, fought for. Yes, I said. I'm okay. But I wasn't. Not really. The house was mine again, but it was empty in ways it had never been before. Jessica had thrown away so much. Photos, keepsakes, 30 years of memories tossed in the trash like they meant nothing. I spent the first week just going through what was left. Finding pieces of my life scattered and damaged. My wedding album, rescued from the garage, water damaged but salvageable. Robert's glasses, found in a donation box. My mother's china, half of it missing, probably sold. Rose came over every day to help. Together we slowly put things back. Repainted the walls from Jessica's harsh gray back to the soft cream I'd chosen. Hung family photos back up. Brought Robert's furniture out of storage. But some things couldn't be replaced. The sense of safety in my own home. The trust I'd had in my son. The belief that family meant something sacred. Those were gone. Maybe forever. The district attorney filed charges against Jessica 2 weeks after the hearing. Fraud, forgery, theft, elder abuse. Her bail was set at $50,000. She made it, barely, with help from her family. David filed for divorce the same week. I heard through Mrs. Patterson that Jessica was furious, that she'd screamed at him that this was all his fault, that he'd ruined her life. The irony was almost funny. Almost. 3 months passed. I heard nothing from David. The restraining order was still in place and he respected it. But every week flowers arrived at my door. No card. No note. Just flowers. I knew they were from him. I didn't throw them away, but I didn't display them either. I left them on the porch where they'd wilt and die and be replaced the next week with fresh ones. It was Rose who finally said what I'd been avoiding. Maggie, at some point you need to decide. Are you going to forgive him or not? Because this limbo isn't fair to either of you. He threw me out in the rain, Rose. I know. He chose her over me. He let her drug me, steal from me, erase me from my own life. I know that too. So how can I forgive that? Rose took my hand. I'm not saying you should. I'm saying you need to decide. Because right now you're still letting this define you. Still letting what they did control your life. Whether you forgive him or not, you need to let yourself move forward. He was right. I knew she was right. 6 months after the lockout, I received a letter. From David. I almost didn't open it. Almost threw it away with the rest of the mail. But something stopped me. I sat in my kitchen, at the same table where I'd fed David breakfast for 18 years, where I'd helped him with homework, where we'd laughed and talked and been a family, and I read his letter. Dear Mom, it began, and his handwriting was shaky like he'd been crying while he wrote it. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm working every day to become a man worthy of being your son again. I'm in therapy. Dr. Rosen is helping me understand how I became someone who could betray the person who loved me most in the world. How I let myself be manipulated. How I confused comfort with happiness, and how I let fear of confrontation turn me into a coward. I left the private practice Jessica and I were planning. I volunteer now at St. Mary's Free Clinic, helping people who can't afford care. The people you taught me to never forget. The people you were once working 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. I remember now, Mom. I remember the woman who would come home at midnight, exhausted from her second shift, and still help me study for exams. I remember the woman who wore the same coat for 10 years because every extra dollar went to my future. I remember the woman who held me when I cried over my first heartbreak and told me I'd be okay. I remember who raised me. And I'm ashamed of the man who forgot. I don't expect you to write back. I don't expect you to want to see me. But I need you to know that I'm trying. Every single day, I'm trying to be the son you deserved instead of the son who betrayed you. I love you. Even if you never speak to me again, I love you. David. I read that letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. I didn't respond. Not yet. But I didn't throw it away either. Another 3 months passed. Jessica's trial was scheduled. The D offered her a plea deal. 3 years in prison, probation, restitution of everything she'd stolen. He took it. She didn't have much choice given the evidence. I attended her sentencing. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see it end officially. Maybe I needed closure. Jessica looked terrible. Her designer clothes gone, replaced with a plain dress. Her perfect hair limp. Her cold beauty dimmed by stress and fear. When the judge asked if I wanted to make a victim impact statement, I stood up. Jessica finally looked at me, and for the first time I saw real regret in her eyes. Or maybe it was just self-pity. Hard to tell. Jessica Chen, I said, my voice steady and clear. You tried to take everything from me. My home, my savings, my son, my dignity. You treated me like an obstacle instead of a person. Like trash to be thrown away. She flinched but didn't look away. But you failed. Because I'm still here. My home is mine. My dignity is intact. And my son, my voice wavered slightly, is learning who he is without you. I don't forgive you. I may never forgive you. But I don't hate you either. I pity you. Because you had a chance at real love with my son, at being part of a real family, and you threw it away for money. For things. For greed. I hope prison teaches you something about the value of what you destroyed. But honestly, I don't care anymore. You're no longer part of my life and I'm free of you. I sat down. Jessica was crying, but I felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger. Just emptiness where she used to take up space in my mind. The judge sentenced her to 3 years. She'd be out in 2 with good behavior. 2 years. For trying to steal my entire life. It didn't seem like enough, but I realized I didn't need her to suffer. I just needed her gone. 1 year after the lockout, I received another letter from David. This one was shorter. Mom, I know I don't deserve a response. But I'm hoping you might consider meeting me. Just coffee. Just 1 hour. I'll understand if you say no. I'll understand if you never want to see me again. But I'm asking anyway because I miss my mother more than words can say. David. I stared at that letter for 3 days. If you've made it this far in my story, thank you for listening. But I need your help deciding something. My son wants to meet. After everything he did, after the betrayal and the pain, should I give him that chance? Or are some betrayals too deep to forgive? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to know what you think. Rose said I should meet him. Not for him, Maggie. For you. You need to look him in the eye and decide if there's anything left to salvage. My therapist, yes, I'd started seeing someone too, said the same thing. You don't have to forgive him. You don't have to rebuild the relationship. But you should give yourself the chance to find out if you want to. So I wrote back. 1 line, Saturday. Rose's Cafe. 2 p.m. 1 hour. That Saturday I arrived early. Chose a table by the window. Ordered chamomile tea even though my hands were shaking too much to hold the cup steady. At exactly 2 p.m., David walked in. He looked different. Thinner. Older. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. His expensive clothes were gone, replaced with a simple button-down and jeans. He looked like a man who'd been through hell and barely made it out. When he saw me, his face crumpled with relief and fear and hope and guilt all at once. He sat down across from me, and for a long moment neither of us spoke. Thank you for coming, he finally said. His voice was hoarse. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, I admitted. I wouldn't have blamed you. More silence. The cafe bustled around us. People laughing, talking, living their normal lives. We sat in our bubble of pain and complicated history. Mom, David started, then stopped. Started again. I've been trying to figure out what to say to you for a year. I've written it out 1,000 times. But now that you're here, all those words feel empty. I said nothing. Just waited. I destroyed us, he continued, tears already gathering in his eyes. I took everything you sacrificed for me and threw it in your face. I let someone convince me that you were the problem, when you were the only person who'd ever truly loved me. Why? I asked. The question I'd been carrying for a year. Why did you let her do it, David? You knew me. You knew what I'd sacrificed. So why? He was quiet for a long time, really thinking about his answer. Because it was easier, he finally said. That's the truth, and it's pathetic, but it's true. Fighting Jessica meant confronting things I didn't want to see. That I'd married someone who didn't really love me. That I'd built a life on superficial things. Money, status, appearances. That somewhere along the way I'd become someone you wouldn't recognize. Accepting her version of reality, that you were the problem that you needed to be set aside, meant I didn't have to look at myself. Didn't have to admit I'd failed. That I'd become entitled and weak and nothing like the man you raised me to be. He wiped his eyes. I was a coward, Mom. I chose comfort over courage. I chose my pride over your dignity. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I took a sip of my tea, buying time while I processed his words. They sounded true. But were they enough? Tell me about therapy, I said. He looked surprised but nodded. Dr. Rosen has been helping me understand my patterns. How I've always avoided conflict. How I confused being liked with being good. How I let Jessica, define my worth instead of knowing it myself. We've been working through everything. Not just what I did to you, but why. The entitlement I developed. The way I started believing I deserved things I hadn't earned. The way I let success make me forget where I came from. He leaned forward slightly. I'm not the same person who locked you out, Mom. I'm trying every day not to be. I volunteer at the free clinic now, 40 hours a week. I help people who can't afford health care. People like you were when I was young. People you taught me to care about. Is that supposed to make it better? I asked, and there was an edge to my voice. No, David said immediately. No, I'm not trying to buy forgiveness with good deeds. I'm trying to become someone who deserves to be your son again. Even if you never let me be. We sat in silence again. I looked at this man across from me, this stranger who used to be my little boy. The child I'd rocked through nightmares. The teenager I'd coached through heartbreaks. The man I'd been so proud of when he graduated medical school. Where had he gone? And could I trust that this version sitting in front of me was real? I'm angry, I said finally. I'm so angry at you, David. You broke my heart in ways I didn't know were possible. I know. You chose her over me. You threw me out in the rain. You let her drug me, steal from me, erase me from my own life. I know. Tears were streaming down his face now. And you want me to just, what? Forgive you? Pretend it didn't happen? No, he said firmly. I don't want you to pretend anything. I want you to know that I see what I did. I own it. It was unforgivable, and I'm not asking you to forgive it. Then what are you asking? He looked at me with such raw pain that I almost looked away. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be better. Not to earn back what we had, I know that's gone. But to build something new. Something honest. Where I show up as the son you deserved all along. And if I say no? His voice broke. Then I'll respect that. I'll keep working on myself. I'll keep trying to be better. But I'll do it knowing I lost the most important person in my life because I didn't fight for her when it mattered. I set down my teacup. My hands had finally stopped shaking. I can't promise you forgiveness, I said. I can't promise we'll ever have what we had before. That trust is shattered, David. It might stay shattered forever. He nodded, fresh tears falling. But, I continued, and his eyes snapped up to mine, I can promise you honesty. I can tell you that I see you trying. I see the remorse. I see that you're doing the work. Does that mean? It means we can try, I interrupted. Slowly. Carefully. You've earned the right to try to rebuild, but you haven't earned trust back yet. That could take years. It might never come. I'll take it, David said immediately. Whatever you're willing to give, I'll take it. Then here are my terms, I said, and my voice was stronger now. Clear. We start small. Coffee once a month. You don't push for more. You respect my boundaries. You keep doing your therapy. You keep doing the work. And if I say I need space, you give it to me without question. Yes. All of it. Whatever you need. And David, if you ever choose someone over me like that again. If you ever let someone manipulate you into betraying me, we're done. Permanently. Do you understand? I understand. I mean it. No second chances after this one. I know, Mom. I swear to you. Don't swear. I cut him off. Don't make promises. Just show me. Through your actions. Over time. That's all I want. He nodded, wiping his face with his napkin. Can I tell you something? What? I found something when I was moving out. A letter you'd left in my old bedroom. You wrote it the night before the lockout. I remembered. I'd written it when I couldn't sleep, when I knew what was coming the next day. I've read it every day since then, David said. You wrote that you forgave me. That you always would. But that forgiveness didn't mean accepting cruelty. I meant it. I know. That's what killed me. Even knowing I was about to betray you, you forgave me. You loved me unconditionally. And I threw it away. Yes, I said simply. You did. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that love. I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of that love. I looked at my son, at the work still ahead of us, at the broken trust, at the pain that might never fully heal. But also at the possibility. The chance. The hope that maybe, just maybe, we could build something new from the rubble. We'll see, I said. We finished our coffee. Made plans to meet again in a month. It was awkward and painful and strange, but it was a start. As we walked out of the cafe, David stopped. Mom? Would it be okay if I hugged you? Every instinct screamed at me to say no. To protect myself. To keep the walls up. But I thought about Robert. About what he would say if he were here. About the man who'd always believed in second chances, in redemption, in the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. Okay, I whispered. David wrapped his arms around me and I felt him shaking with sobs. I'm so sorry, he kept saying. I'm so sorry. I didn't say it back. I wasn't sorry. I hadn't done anything wrong. But I held him, my broken son, and let him cry. When we pulled apart, he looked at me with such desperate hope. Same time next month? Same time next month, I agreed. He walked away and I watched him go. Watched him get into his modest car. The expensive BMW Jessica had insisted on was long gone. Watched him drive away, probably to his small apartment, his volunteer shift, his therapy session. And I felt, not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But something else. Something lighter. The possibility of peace. That was 2 years ago. David and I meet once a month now. Sometimes more if I'm feeling generous. We have coffee, we talk, we carefully rebuild something that looks nothing like what we had before but might someday be its own kind of good. He's kept every promise. Therapy every week. Volunteer work at the clinic. Respectful of my boundaries. Patient when I have bad days and need space. Last month, on what would have been Robert's 70th birthday, David showed up at my door with a dandelion. I know I'm not supposed to come without calling, he said, looking nervous. But I remembered Dad's birthday and I thought maybe we could visit his grave together? If you want. If not, I'll go. I looked at that dandelion, that weed that Robert had always called wishes waiting to happen. That David used to bring me as a boy, thinking they were the most beautiful flowers in the world. Wait here, I said. I went inside and got my purse, my jacket. When I came back out, David's face lit up with cautious joy. We drove to the cemetery in silence. Stood at Robert's grave side by side. I placed my flowers, roses from my garden. David placed his dandelion. I'm sorry I didn't protect her, Dad, David said softly. I know you trusted me to. I know I failed. But I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to be the man you would have been proud of. I felt tears on my face but didn't wipe them away. He would have been devastated by what you did, I said honestly. But he also believed in second chances. In redemption. He would have wanted us to find our way back to each other. Do you think we will? David asked. Really? I thought about it. About the coffee dates that had gotten easier. About the conversation that had gotten deeper. About the trust that was rebuilding grain by grain like sand in an hourglass. I think we already are, I said. Slowly. But yes. David let out a breath he'd been holding for 2 years. We stood there together, 3 generations of Chen family. The man who'd built our foundation, the woman who'd protected it, and the son who'd almost destroyed it but was learning to repair it. It wasn't perfect. Might never be. But it was honest. Hours. Jessica was released from prison 6 months ago. I heard she moved to another state, started over with a new name. I hope she learned something. I hope she became someone better. But honestly, I don't think about her much anymore. She's a chapter that's closed. David is dating someone new. Sarah, a social worker at the clinic. He asked if I wanted to meet her, but I said not yet. I'm not ready. Maybe someday. My house is mine again fully. I've redecorated it exactly how I want. Robert's study is restored. My photos are on the walls. My roses bloom every spring. Mrs. Patterson still comes over for tea. Rose is still my rock. My life has returned to what it was before David and Jessica moved in, but different. Stronger somehow. Because I fought for it. Because I refused to be a victim. Because I learned that loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. People ask me sometimes if I regret fighting back. If I regret taking David to court, exposing him, potentially damaging his career and reputation. The answer is no. Not for a second. Because if I hadn't fought back, I'd be in some facility right now, warehoused and forgotten, while Jessica lived in my house and spent my money. David would have learned that you can betray people and get away with it. That the people who love you are just resources to be used. By fighting back, I saved myself. But I also saved him. Forced him to confront who he'd become. Gave him the chance to be better. That's what real love looks like sometimes. Not accepting everything. Not enabling. But holding people accountable while leaving the door open, just a crack, for them to walk back through if they're willing to do the work. Last week David called me. Not our scheduled call. Surprise. Mom? I just wanted to hear your voice. Is everything okay? I asked, immediately worried. Yeah, everything's fine. I was just driving home from the clinic and I passed our old house, your house, and I remembered. Do you remember when I was 7 and I tried to plant a garden for you in the backyard? I smiled. You planted the seeds upside down. And you didn't tell me. You let me water them for 2 weeks before gently showing me how to do it right. You were so proud of yourself. I didn't want to discourage you. That's what I've been thinking about lately, David said, and his voice was soft. How patient you always were with me. How you let me make mistakes and learn from them. How you never made me feel stupid even when I got things wrong. I felt my throat tighten. That's what mothers do, David. Good mothers, he corrected. Not all mothers. You were patient and kind and you saw the best in me even when I didn't deserve it. Where is this coming from? I asked. He was quiet for a moment. I was working with a kid at the clinic today. 12 years old, came in with his mom. They don't have insurance, can barely afford food, but his mom brought him in because he's been having chest pains. Turns out it's just anxiety, but you know what she said to me? What? She said, I'll do whatever it takes. He's my son. I'd give him my last breath if he needed it. And I saw you, Mom. I saw you in her eyes. That fierce, unconditional love. That willingness to sacrifice everything. He took a shaky breath. And I thought about how I repaid that love. How I threw it away like it meant nothing. And I needed to call you. I needed to tell you that I see it now. I see what you gave me. What you sacrificed. And I'm sorry I couldn't see it then. I closed my eyes, tears streaming down my face. David. You don't have to say anything, he interrupted. I just needed you to know. I see you, Mom. Finally, after all these years, I really see you. We sat in silence on the phone, both crying, both healing. I love you, I finally said. I'm still angry sometimes. I still hurt. But I love you. I love you too, Mom. So much. After we hung up, I sat in my living room, Robert's chair by the window, the evening light filtering through my roses, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because everything was fixed. Not because the pain was gone. But because I'd fought for my dignity and won. Because I'd refused to let betrayal define me. Because I'd given my son the chance to be better while protecting myself from further harm. That's the lesson I want you to take from my story. If you're facing family betrayal, and I know some of you are, I can feel it in the messages you send, in the comments you leave. Know this. You are not powerless. You are not required to accept abuse just because it comes from family. Blood doesn't give anyone the right to steal from you, manipulate you, or throw you away. Document everything. Protect yourself financially and legally. Don't be afraid to seek help. Lawyers, therapists, friends who will believe you. And most importantly, don't let shame silence you. Jessica counted on me being too embarrassed to fight back, too worried about what people would think if I took my own son to court. But the only person who should feel shame is the person doing wrong, not the person defending themselves. Stand up. Fight back. Protect yourself. And then, if and when they're ready to do the real work of change, you can decide if you want to let them back in. But on your terms. At your pace. With your boundaries firmly in place. Forgiveness is not weakness. But neither is it required. You get to decide what you can and cannot forgive. You get to decide who deserves access to your life. You get to decide when enough is enough. I chose to give David another chance because I saw genuine remorse, genuine change, genuine work being done. But even now, 2 years later, I keep my boundaries. I protect myself. I watch for warning signs. I will never again sacrifice my well-being for someone else's comfort. That's not cruelty. That's wisdom. My 71st birthday was last week. David asked if he could come over, bring dinner, celebrate with me. I said yes. He showed up with Chinese takeout. Not fancy restaurant food, but the cheap stuff from the place we used to go when he was in medical school and I was working 2 jobs. The place where we'd split one entree because that's all we could afford. I remember this, I said, looking at the familiar containers. I thought maybe we could remember together. The good times. Before I ruined everything. We ate in my kitchen at the same table where we'd eaten 1,000 meals. We talked about the past, the real past, not the romanticized version. The hard times, the sacrifices, but also the joy, the love, the bond we'd had. Do you think Dad would have forgiven me? David asked suddenly. I thought about Robert. About the man who'd believed in redemption but also in accountability. Who'd been tough when he needed to be but never cruel. He would have been devastated, I said honestly. He would have been angrier than you've ever seen him. But yes, eventually, if you did the work, like you're doing, he would have forgiven you. He believed people could change if they really wanted to. David nodded, wiping his eyes. I think about him every day. Wonder what he'd say. If he'd be proud of who I'm becoming, even if he was ashamed of who I was. He'd be proud of the trying, I said. That's what he always cared about. Not perfection. Effort. Character. Choosing to be better even when it's hard. After dinner, David helped me clean up. We washed dishes side by side just like we used to when he was a teenager, and I'd make him help with chores. Mom? He said as he dried a plate. Yeah. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on me. Even when I gave you every reason to. I looked at my son, at the gray hair starting to show at his temples, at the lines around his eyes from stress and growth, at the man he was becoming instead of the man he'd been. I'm your mother, I said simply. I'll never give up on you. But I'll also never again let you treat me like you did. Both things can be true. He nodded. I'm grateful for both. As he left that night, he hugged me, something we do now carefully at the end of our visits. Happy birthday, Mom. I love you. I love you too, I said. And I meant it. After he left, I sat in my garden as the sun set. My roses were blooming. The same roses Robert and I had planted 30 years ago. The same roses that had survived everything, including Jessica's attempt to replace them with modern landscaping. They'd been cut back, damaged, nearly destroyed. But they'd survived. They'd grown back stronger, their roots too deep to be torn out. Just like me. So that's my story. That's how my son and daughter-in-law locked me out of my own house and what I did about it. Did it end happily? Not exactly. It's more complicated than that. David and I are rebuilding, but it's slow and painful and uncertain. Some days are good. Some days the hurt is still so fresh I can barely breathe. Some days I look at him and see my betrayer before I see my son. But we're trying. That's more than I thought we'd have a year ago. More than I thought possible when I stood in the rain outside my locked door, watching my life be stolen from me. I got my house back. My dignity back. My power back. And slowly, carefully, I'm getting my son back too. Not the son I lost, but a different version. A humbler one. A wiser one. One who knows the cost of betrayal and chooses differently now. Is it enough? I don't know yet. Ask me in another year. Another 5 years. Maybe I'll have a different answer then. But for now I'm here. In my home. Surrounded by my memories and my roses and my hard-won peace. I'm here and I'm strong and I survived. And if you're going through something similar, If someone you love is trying to take what's yours, trying to convince you that you're too old, too confused, too in the way, please hear me. You are not powerless. You are not alone. You can fight back. And you should. Document everything. Seek legal help. Protect yourself. And know that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. If my experience helps even one person stand up for themselves, then sharing this pain was worth it. This is Margaret Chen reminding you that your home is yours, your life is yours, and no one, not even family, has the right to take that from you. And before you go, I want to hear from you. Have you experienced family betrayal? Are you dealing with something similar right now? Share your story in the comments below. Let's support each other. Let's remind each other that we're not alone in this fight. And if this story touched you, if it made you think or feel or remember your own strength, please subscribe to Aunty Anne's Tales. Every day we share stories of family deception and triumphant lessons. Stories of people who refused to stay broken, who fought back, who reclaimed their lives. Hit that subscribe button. Join our community. Because together we're stronger than any betrayal. Together we rise above. Until next time, remember, you have the power to rise above. You always have. This is Margaret Chen's story. But it could be yours too. It could be your neighbors, your friends, your mothers. Stay strong. Stay vigilant. And never, ever let anyone make you believe you deserve less than dignity and respect. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this community where we lift each other up, where we share our truths, where we remind each other that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of our story. It can be the beginning of our strength. God bless you all. And remember, you are never alone in this fight. Margaret's story shows us something powerful, that love and boundaries can coexist. That forgiveness is a choice, not an obligation. That family betrayal, while devastating, doesn't have to destroy us. She could have stayed silent, accepted her fate, let them win. But she chose to fight. Not with hatred but with truth. With documentation. With the law on her side and dignity in her heart. And now, 2 years later, she's not just surviving, she's healing. On her own terms. At her own pace. If you're facing family deception, let Margaret's story be your guide. You don't have to be nice. You don't have to make it easy for people who are hurting you. You don't have to accept abuse in the name of keeping peace. You have the right to protect yourself. To fight back. To demand justice. And then, if you choose, to offer grace, but only on your terms, only when you're ready, and only if real change has occurred. What would you have done in Margaret's situation? Would you have fought back or walked away? Would you give David another chance, or is some betrayal simply unforgivable? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment, and your story might help someone else who's struggling right now. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of family deception and triumphant lessons. Every day we share tales of courage, justice, and the power of refusing to stay broken. Until tomorrow, remember, even in your darkest family moment, you have the power to rise above it. You are not alone. You are not powerless. You are stronger than you know.